this is really just to say that that nutrition is not the science we think it is, and a lot of what we thought we understood a while ago, we don't, and I'm sure that is still true of loads of other things that we think we understand. So what we now know about calcium and what we used to say about it are quite different. What I will say, though, is when we started back in 1994 in October, we placed adverts for our disinfectant products because that's what we thought was odd and different and innovative and whatever. And we started in October 1994, and all we did was when we sent an order out, we put a price list in with it. And that was all the promotion we did for our calcium supplement, was stick a price list out with people who bought disinfectant. By December, so 2 months later, the chelated calcium product, the calcium supplement, was our biggest selling product. And every single month of every single year since December 1994, our calcium technology has been our biggest seller. And the reality is, we didn't really know why. Parrot talk, horses. What has got us to understand why is a slightly bizarre story, but it's the work we do on horses. And basically, to cut a long story short, I started riding as a 49-year-old, which is pretty stupid, and I bought a thoroughbred, which are notoriously spooky and difficult to ride. And I was told not to do this by slightly younger and wiser people. And anyway, Paddy, my lovely chestnut thoroughbred, was a nightmare, and I didn't know what to do with him. And he couldn't in a million years be calcium deficient because we live on top of the Cotswolds and there's limestone all over the place. So he couldn't, you would never have thought of giving him a calcium supplement. And eventually, out of sheer desperation, well, no, before desperation, I used all the supplements that the horse people sell you, which are mostly magnesium supplements. They didn't do anything. We now know why, but we didn't then. So we gave him magnesium supplements, they didn't work. And then, hey presto, we thought, okay, if Paddy was a parrot, what would we do? And the connection we had made years earlier was that we get all these oven-ready, feather-plucked parrots. And we've got all sorts of training regimes, and I'm not, those are fine, and we've got, really good animal behaviour people here who understand these things. But the reality was, if you didn't give them a calcium supplement, all the training in the world didn't seem to be very successful. So we'd sort of made that observation in parrots, and we effectively said, well, if Paddy was a parrot, what would we do? Glug. We took our liquid calcium product, poured it down his throat, and 25 minutes later he went, and we went, we have no idea what we have done here. Since then, the reason for this Olympic event rider from New Zealand, we've got British dressage riders with gold, silver and bronze Olympic medals now, all on basically parrot calcium supplements. And the reason I keep going to Australia is because they have a particular problem. They poison their horses, not intentionally. They love their horses just as the way you love your parrots, and they love their cattle just the way. But they've got pastures that are really poisonous, and it turns out that chelated calcium is the perfect antidote. So what we now know about calcium, we've learned from horses, but it's just as true of the birds. I'm going to tell you sort of what chelated calcium does. And the first answer is it does everything, which is a bit scary. Almost every cell in our body uses this process here called calcium signaling. Now, when I went to university, nobody'd heard of calcium signaling, right? Absolutely nobody. Guy got the Nobel Prize in 2013 for the work he did on calcium signaling. That work started in the late 80s and early 90s. And billions of research dollars have been spent understanding this process. But interestingly enough, that chelated calcium molecule I showed you is completely invisible to all the tests that the guys doing this research do. They cannot see it. Their systems all simply aren't looking at it and aren't looking for it. But one of the things that chelated calcium does is it regulates ordinary calcium. It helps with that regulatory process, which is why when you give a bird that looks calcium deficient a chelated calcium supplement, you correct the way it regulates its calcium and it gets better again, even though you haven't actually given it calcium. It's very confusing, isn't it? The word calcium appears 5 times too often, and it's very, very difficult to get your head around it. But chelated calcium does different things.